Hello and welcome to another episode of How the Hell Did I Get Here show with Meg and Rachel. Today we have our guest, Deb Soholt, who is on with us. And Deb is the co-founder of Influential SHE. She's a prominent state legislator, women's health pioneer, award-winning registered nurse, and engaging podcast radio host. She speaks nationally and internationally on issues of women's influence, women's health, and professional development. Hi, Deb.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks so very much for having me.
Yeah. So, Deb, tell us about the moment in your career or series of moments over the arc of your career where you kind of looked around and said, how the hell did I get here?
Well, I think one of the things for me, because I'm a curious sort and I like new challenges, and sometimes in my career, I would put myself too far out on the ledge in creativity. And one of my mantras in life has always been, well, proceed until apprehended. So within whatever boundaries I'm working in, I'm always out on the edge of that boundary, trying to see what's possible. And so I think there have been a couple of times, one in particular in my career, where I started a whole new concept of, it's a functional medicine concept of really being ahead of the curve, probably about a decade ahead of the curve within a traditional healthcare system. And it wasn't so much how the hell did I get here from being scared or nervous. It was more, wow, what the hell? I got out here way faster than probably should have within a traditional environment, which then, just led to a lot of interesting relationships and regard within a traditional system. So I think it was probably more getting out too far too fast. And in the work that I do now in helping other women build their influence, it's really, a stronger maybe assessment of environment and what is the creativity tolerance of those that are around you and the structure within which you're working.
So do you think it was the structure wasn't ready, but did you see a need in the community, or what? Why do you think you drove out that far?
Well, it was a significant need, and it really was in women's health that I've been working in traditional women's health of, babies and women having surgeries. And, I just say the bottom line with that is we kind of viewed in traditional healthcare a woman as a uterus, like either for reproduction or removal. And maybe because I was going out of childbearing age myself with so much around babies, to say, what's that next piece that really women need versus surgery or more experimental medications that we don't really know one way or another. We're not measuring anything. We don't know how to get you back in balance for you. And seeing this rough hormonal transition for women in midlife. So I just really got curious, started exploring, started talking to people in the world, doing a lot of reading. One thing led to another. We thought it was first just about hormonal balance, put together a business plan, was able to take a risk. I went from, managing like $15 million book of business down to managing myself and creating a new concept, which was an incredible leap of faith from the organization. But then to bring the medical community along when the traditional paradigm was really not looking that way. And everyone that started coming to work with me in relationship to that, I said, hey, you may want to think through if you want to do this or not, because once you know what I've learned, there's no going back. And there were many times where I would say, oh gosh, being ignorant on all this was just such an easier path. This was a difficult place to go. But what we created in a functional medicine clinic for women is now in Sioux Falls. I don't do that work anymore. I left that about a year ago and to start my new company. But now the wait for appointment for women is a year and a half out.
Whoa.
So obviously it struck a chord and is a definite need within community for women. And it was really to level set women back as a whole being, that it's, your gut, your brain, your sex hormones, your immune system, the inflammation, and how do we course correct that and get you back in balance for you. And to watch women reclaim their zest and their energy and, just who they were and recapture themselves without being over medicated is really a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that's incredible. I'm already in full menopause at 45. And so I had an easy time of it, luckily, but I do recognize, I think we kind of forget how much slaves we are to our biochemistry sometimes, and having that out of sync can be really challenging.
Exactly. Well, and the biochemistry is the beautiful thing about being an individual. And so, and different pressures and stresses in life throw that out of kilter. So, but women that really understand how their body works and kind of take themselves back, it's really possible. And, it's been a long time coming. So hope to see more of it develop.
Right. Well, it sounds like there's, with a 1.5-year wait list, it might be time to expand. Nothing else, right?
Might be time.
Might be time. Hint, hint to the people still in the office.
And I think when you think about, how the hell did I get here? I felt comfortable being in the space of being a state senator. Like I felt experientially ready to be in that space, but so I didn't doubt myself and my legitimate place to be there, having gone through an election and, running for the first time. But then there is that incredible new environment that is, and then politics is really just a reconciliation of differing values, and people who go into politics have very strong held values. So brokering and negotiating that was an interesting space to be in. And I've just finished my 8th session. In South Dakota, you actually term out of the that chamber, if you will, after 8 years, which is interesting because you're just starting to get really, really good at it, quite frankly, and then you term out. You know where all the money comes from. It takes a while to figure all of that out and to meet the players and know who you can trust. So certainly there were many what the hell moments in all of that.
I would imagine you have some what the hell moments in Pierre. That's our state capital for out-of-staters.
Yep, there's a few.
I've had those when I was in the gallery. So being on the floor, you probably have a lot of them.
Yeah, but it's, it's really about getting to know people and, what their deeply held beliefs are and the lens with which they're seeing things. And then how do I at least be gracious? I may not agree with you at all, but how can I establish a relationship, value and respect your perspective, even if I don't agree with it, and then try to negotiate something in the middle. And, I think so much is so polarized right now. And good policy, good work that covers, the most of the people that we're to be working for. If we want a solution that fits in community, it's probably somewhere in some moderation and a lot of give and take.
Yeah, it's never at the extremes, that's for sure. The best for everybody, doesn't seem. Well, Deb, you are, according to our assessment, a independent, which basically means that you are chaos tolerant, which sounds like just from that brief description of your what you do every day. And you're also self-driven, which means that but you're barely self-driven. So in our world, self-driven people kind of are anchored in what they believe is right. And if you're more team-driven, then you're really driven to create buy-in. But if you're self-driven, you're okay going out on a limb, doing something that maybe not everybody understands. And so you're on that self-driven side, but you still definitely are close to being a fixer, which is the team-driven people. So so basically independents see opportunity in change, especially, and truly can be disruptors. So I love your story about your health background, and because to me that is exactly what it is that you were able to step out and do something that no one else was doing, but because you saw the need. Do you see that as a thread generally through your career?
Oh, I would say, absolutely. And I think what's interesting about, scales and like thinking about where are people at in relationship to team or versus independent, I think it's the maturity of learning that unless you have a team that's inspired, you really can't fully execute meaningful things to be done. You can have a great idea and be super controversial. And I've been super controversial many, many, many times in my life and in my career. And so I have that really strong independent streak, and I'm not afraid to push and move out. But I also know that to have something, so I say about myself, I'm a dreamer and I'm a doer. And part of my dreaming is really pushing and being independent in the push. But then in the doing, you have to inspire people and have people come with you, and it has to have some sense making to it. So it's probably comes more from, I don't want to fix other people's problems. I'm very tolerant of people not liking me. That's just how that's going to go.
Amen.
I mean, there's
she gets you.
fair amount. fair amount will always not, and that's okay. And so, but in the work that I've done legislatively, because I really believe in these dreams of possibility, that why not? How hard could that be? We can figure that out. I don't know why we wouldn't. Where would we go? So I have taken on some really big projects within the state, such as linking arms with another legislator to co-chair the education funding reform in a Republican state that required a sales tax increase as a Republican. I mean, it was extremely controversial, and really, as the co-chair, ended up out on the edge in relationship to perception. And yet it was absolutely the right thing that we had to do. Otherwise, we were not going to have a strong public school system. You have to course correct public obligations every now and then. Even in a Republican state, if you're going to be Republican forever, you have to lead. So I'm okay with all of that being on the ledge. But if you really want to have something done, then you have to build a cohort of people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and help get it done too, because nothing's in a vacuum. Yeah,
and you're partnering with Melody, and
so great.
And how is that going?
It's fantastic. And we got to know each other through this education funding reform. I was actually chairing the Senate Education Committee, and she was Secretary of Education, so really got to know her in the policy way. But it wasn't until we did this education funding reform thing, and part of that with the governors, I said, okay, we have to do everybody's so pissed off about education that we have to do a large qualitative piece of this. We're going to have to go around the state and listen to what people think, because they're mad, and we have to get the anger out from the business people to the teachers to the administrators to, so we did 18 public hearings throughout the state of South Dakota. And during that time, Melody and I had the opportunity to spend a lot of time together, drank wine at the end of these meetings, and really come to understand that philosophically, we were very aligned. We really enjoyed each other's company as women. We respected each other. And neither one of us were done with our careers. We were ready for something new and groovy. We weren't ready to just go to pasture. We don't even understand what retirement kind of means. We just were looking at, what are we going to retool and recareer for another decade? What would be juicy, interesting, and fun? And so I just feel extraordinarily blessed to have her as my business partner and friend. So it's been a riot.
Well, that is awesome. I think we could probably listen to you tell stories all day. So we're really, really very appreciative of the ones that you did share with us, Deb. And we wish you the best in all of your future endeavors, you and Mel and Influential SHE. And thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.